Hi everyone. Today we're going to be focusing on Native American art. I know that in 5th grade you've been working on your Native American unit in social studies. We're going to be creating a dream catcher today. We're not going to be doing a sculpture of a dream catcher because we're doing this virtually, so not everybody has those particular supplies. We're going to be doing a picture of a dream catcher. Before we get started, I want to just show you a video that describes the 5 things that you need to know about a dream catcher and what exactly they are. So these are native to the indigenous people of America, the Native Americans, and they were used to catch good and bad dreams. So I'm going to share a short video. The woman in the video is a Native woman who is describing the 5 key points of the dream catchers. And you can see she has a bunch of shoes on the wall behind her. She actually runs a native tribal shoe store. And I'm gonna get this started. Just one second. Make sure I clicked on the sound for you. Yeah.
Represent and make up what a dream catcher is and what its meaning really represents. I will break down the 5 main components of the dream catcher so you will understand exactly what a dream catcher is, so the next time that you want to select one or someone asks you what a dream catcher is, you'll know all the answers. The first thing to note is that dream catchers may originate with the indigenous people. However, today they are seen all over the world and might be claimed to have been originated from other parts of the world, and that's okay. Different tribes and different cultures might have different meanings of what the dream catcher represents, and that's okay too. The meaning of the dream catcher that we're talking about today is the indigenous people of Canada, specifically the Anishinaabe teachings of the dream catcher. So now the first identifier of a dream catcher is that, of course, they are round. Dream catchers are usually made with a wood hoop or some sort of pliable material. Now, authentic dream catchers made from our ancestors were made of red willow. And like a lot of things in the Anishinaabe culture, the circle represents the circle of life. And that is very, very important to Anishinaabe people because circles are the center of everything, as the circle of life is deeply ingrained in all of the teachings and all of the stories. It signifies that there is no real end or beginning. Life is continuously going around in a circle. The second component of a dream catcher is that they have a web. Now, this web can be made with either a net or thread. Sometimes you see dream catchers made with colorful string, and that's where the artist is expressing their artistic ability and their personality, and that's also great. Now, the web is used to catch the bad dreams from coming through when the person is sleeping, but at the same time to allow the good dreams to come through. Now, the third identifier or significance of the dream catcher is that they have stones or gems of some sort weaved into the web. Now, these are to represent the spider that has created the web. The teaching behind this is that the nightmares actually get caught in the spider's web, and she, the spider, is the web weaver. Now, you will see various dream catchers made by different artists that might have more stylishly designed gems and stones on there, or more natural, plain looking gems, and it's just a matter of preference that the designer wants their dream catchers to have. And one isn't better than the other. It's just how the designer wants their dream catcher to look and feel. Now, the fourth part of the dream catcher is that you'll notice that most dream catchers have feathers hanging from the circle. Now, it is said that the feathers that are hanging from the bottom of the circle can allow the good dreams to be caught in the spider's web and have a passage through the feathers to the person that is sleeping below it. Now, the fifth fun fact about dream catchers is that they are beautiful creations, of course, that come in many different styles and sizes and designs, and that they're primarily used to ward off nightmares. The nightmares that are caught up in the web are then said to be burned up by the morning light. But as we know, the good dreams are let through the web down the feathers to the undisturbed sleeping person. So that's the core significance of the dream catcher and the meaning behind it and all of the 5 different components of the dream catcher. But of course,
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video. I felt like that was very informative to kind of clear up some of the myths and some of the ideas out there about dream catchers that may or may not be true. The dream catchers were used in Native American culture based on the story of the spider, and they did catch good and bad dreams. Many of you probably have dream catchers at home. And so you may have one already hanging in your room, and you are free to look at that for some inspiration. Here's a couple of images that I've painted. And you may also choose to just do one that is colored. Now remember, this is a web. So you want to leave some of this uncolored or open so that it shows that it's a web and that this actually is open. If you wanted to color the entire background of your paper, then you could color in here as well. Okay. Now, also, we talked about this with my 4th grade class. This is called, this design is created using radial symmetry. Radial symmetry is when something is equal, the design is equal going all the way around. So we've all talked about in class before symmetry, where things are equal on 2 sides. So if you were to open a book is symmetrical, it's equal on both sides. If you were to look at somebody's face, if I were to draw a line right down the middle of my face is symmetrical on both sides. I have an eyebrow on each one, an eye on each one, a nostril on each one. My lips are equal on each side, an ear on each side of my head. So my face is symmetrical. The dream catcher uses the art technique of radial symmetry, meaning that it is equal going all the way around the circle. So I want you to focus on that today. Your web can be designed however you want. I'm going to draw a web using this sort of floral sort of petal pattern, and you can change it and design yours the way that you want. I want you to keep radial symmetry in mind when you're working on that. Okay, and you can decorate, like I said, you can paint or you can color, you can kind of use some creative freedom with your decorations. I'm going to do my dream catcher on my paper vertically. So my paper is shorter on the top and the bottom and longer on the sides. So this is portrait style. And I'm using a tracer. You could trace a cup, you could trace a water bottle, you could trace a cereal bowl, something round that you can trace to create a nice perfect circle on your paper. This cardboard is cut a little imperfect, so it's not going to be a perfect circle. But if you are tracing a cereal bowl, don't trace that with your Sharpie, because you very likely will have Sharpie marks on your cup or on your bowl, which your parents are not going to want. So you need to trace with your pencil first, okay? But I'm drawing with a Sharpie today just so that you are able to see better through the document camera. And I'll just darken this up a little bit. Now, one thing I do not have on a couple of my examples that I think I'll go back in and add is the width of this outside circle, showing that that actually is the wooden hoop. So I did include that on this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw another circle, trying to just match that same line, just slightly inset to show the width of that hoop. Now, for the center of the dream catcher, where the dreams pass through, the good dreams pass through, I'm going to just trace this small bottle cap, and I'm going to eyeball it. You can always measure and decide if yours is right perfectly in the middle, but I'm just going to kind of guesstimate that this is approximately the middle. Okay, and I'm going to trace that circle for my inside portion of my web. So this is actually part of the web. I'm going to put that like that in there. Now, I'm going to divide mine. I'm going to make a pattern on mine similar to this. And like I said, you do not have to follow this design. You can change this how you like. I do not have a ruler handy, but I do have a box that has a straight edge. You could use paper that has a straight edge if you want. And I'm just going to divide. I'm going to make a line here and here, and I'm going to divide my circle into 4 quadrants. I'm going to make 4 separate quadrants for my circle. I went a little inside there, but that's okay. I'm working with a Sharpie, so I'm not able to erase, but if you make a mistake on something and you want to erase it, then it's better to draw directly with your pencil first. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this petal design in all 4 sections of this circle. I'm just starting a little bit off from that main line and I'm trying to come to a point. Now you want to do your best to try and make this, and maybe since I made this mistake here, I'm just gonna make it work. Sometimes in art, we just have to make it work, okay? So you need to work to try and make sure you're making this as symmetrical as possible. You can see that some of my petals are not 100% perfect, but they're pretty good, and it's looking like it's got that radial symmetry theme. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add another petal in between, and I'm gonna kind of overlap those first ones. So I'm gonna start over kind of at this point, curve in, and then out to fill in a second petal in the open space. And I think to just add a little bit more design, I'll go ahead and add in a petal that is smaller, maybe like a leaf that would be connected here. All the way around. Now, remember that she added, and she talked about in the video, the beading. The beading is what signifies the spider who actually spins the web. Okay, so you can go through and decide what makes sense with your design of where you might want to add some beads. And I think I'm going to divide these, kind of follow that same theme all the way around the entire circle, consistent with radial symmetry. All right, now the next thing you want to do is you want to start to add in your feathers. Your feathers, I'm going to start with one coming down from each side of my dream catcher. So I'll move this up a little bit. And I'm just going to have that string coming down on both sides. Now your feather, I'm going to draw this with a pencil, so hopefully you can see this well. I'm going to do kind of that leafy design with some curved lines. Remember, that's really hard for you to see. Remember, feathers are found in nature, so the designs are very organic. But if you look at a feather, some of those fibers from the bird feather, they actually stick together. So you have some portions that have little insets on your feather. So I'm going to just go ahead and trace over that so you can see that a little bit better. I know it's hard to see with the pencil. Okay, and I'm going to divide this down the middle, and then I'm going to just use some lines to show a little bit of that fiber texture. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'll just go ahead and draw them in. You have that center vein that kind of goes down. And then I'm going to add some feathers that come down from the middle. Now you could add one. You can add one feather. Or you could branch some off from here, having another string tied on there. And obviously I'm doing my feathers very quickly. You could make them a lot more detailed. You can color them with interesting designs. I'm just keeping them very organic and very simple for time. So you can add as much detail to your feathers as you would like. Now, you can color some of this, remember keeping some of that web clear. Or if you want to do this real drippy sort of watercolory look, here's another example. You can get your paper before you use your watercolor. Go ahead and get your watercolor saturated with the water. I'm going to use these cool colors. It's nice to stick when you're doing with this kind of real watery look. It's good to stick with warm or cool colors because then they blend well together. I'm going to go on here and I'm just going to add some plain water to my paper. You can see it's starting to curl up a little bit. I'm just going to add some plain clear water to my paper and get this really saturated. Now you might be working with like a copy paper or like a printer paper at home that would be a little bit thinner than what I'm using. So just be cautious that you don't get so much water that it gets holes in it. Okay, but you can see how quickly the water spreads and the color spreads when you have so much water on your paper. It gives it this really drippy sort of appearance to it. So you're welcome to rinse your brush and you can go ahead and grab another color and add that in a little bit if you would like to. Maybe I'll add even a little bit of this green. And I've kind of stopped just only adding some color at the top. You could do this technique on the entire paper. I wanted to see how this will look if I kind of do a little bit of a drip technique. So you're going to want to protect your table or be prepared to wipe up your table when you're finished. But you could do a little bit of a drippy. If you wanted to have a little bit of a drippy look to your picture, you can go ahead and just kind of shake that out, let some of the paint run down. And when it's finished and it dries, it'll give it sort of this appearance at the bottom. So that's up to you if that's a look that you like. Otherwise, you could continue to go in and really just add a lot of really saturated color to the background of your picture. And this, once it dries, will lighten a little and give it that really airy, beautiful watercolor look. So I hope that you enjoyed the project, and you're welcome to email them to me or you can send them to me on Schoology or Seesaw. I'd love to see what you came up with in your own designs, and I'll see you all again soon.